FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Welcome, and you are listening to the Financial Survival Network. Only 4 days left to the year. It's 12/27/17. Well, you saw the new tax bill go through with all of its imperfections, but overall, it's definitely a net positive for the economy. As long as you don't live in a blue state and make a higher than average income and pay higher than average real estate taxes, you're doing great. Well, the one thing that hasn't really been played up that much, but is really important, is repeal of the individual mandate under Obamacare. Well, before we get to that, email us. I want you to be part of the show. I love hearing from you. I'm almost all caught up with my emails. I think I'm down 10 right now. So don't hesitate or use the Twitter feed at Kerry Lutz. So repeal of the individual mandate. How big a deal is it? If we remember, when Obamacare was passed, the then Vice President, Joe Biden, gaffe master extraordinaire, said it was a big you-know-what deal. Well, how big a deal is repeal of the individual mandate? Well, Dr. Elaina George is with us now. Dr. George, hey, you are at the vanguard of putting the patient back in charge of your healthcare decisions. So how big a deal is it? And welcome back to the show.
It's a huge deal, Kerry. One of the things that I really didn't like about the Affordable Care Act was that there was no choice. It was a centralized control grid where all the decisions were made by the government and or the corporate entities that helped write the Affordable Care Act. If you didn't like what you had, you couldn't afford it, you really had nowhere to go except to pay a fine. What the law does now is it releases those people who couldn't afford it, didn't like it, to go and pursue free market options. Consumer-based healthcare has been growing steadily parallel to the Affordable Care Act for the last several years. You have direct primary care, you have medical cost sharing like Liberty Health Share, you have supplemental policies like AFLAC. These are all, you have cash-based practices. These have all been growing leaps and bounds. And now what people are able to do is they're able to access this alternative to our healthcare system, and they'll find that it's affordable, that the choice is exponentially better than under the insurance model. And I think it's going to actually put pressure on the insurance companies to now play ball because they're no longer the only game in town.
Right. So in effect, not repealing all of Obamacare actually pushes more people towards this alternative health care system, doesn't it?
It does, because now you're not under the yoke of having to pay a fine if you don't want the health insurance. And a lot of people didn't know that they could have chosen Liberty Health Share, for example, or Medishare or Samaritan and have been exempt from the fine. So what those people now can do is not have to, pick something out of fear or out of duress, but now they have the chance to go and find out what the best healthcare delivery model is for them and their family. And I think what they'll find, and what we've been talking about when I've been on the show before, is that if you control your pocketbook, you have an unbelievable amount of power to actually pay less and get more for your health care. And that's the key. It should always be about choice. If people like the Affordable Care Act, they should be able to keep it. But if they don't, they should be able to choose something that works best for them. And now they're going to be able to do that. And ultimately, it's about the patient having the power. To me, this is the best chance or the best kept secret for the doctor-patient relationship, actually being able to survive this whole onslaught that it's the past 8 years.
Yeah, and God knows it's been really horrible what's been happening here, all of this. And it's had so many negative effects, not to mention that the costs have gone through the roof, Dr. George.
Mm-hmm. I know. Well, when you're a monopoly, you get to control the access and you get to control the cost. They really conflated having health insurance with having access to quality health care. That has been the farthest thing. It's been the opposite, actually. Those who have insurance are actually paying more for their health care than those who pay cash out of pocket. Here in Atlanta, across the country, if you pick a radiology center or a lab, even a physician, an independent doctor who lists their prices online, you'll find if you pay cash, you're paying a fraction of what it would cost you to use your insurance card. For example, I can use myself. We can take a patient for a tonsillectomy to a freestanding surgery center who's paying cash $2,500 for the entire thing, surgery fee, anesthesia, the OR, all post-op care. And that same patient with an insurance card going to the main hospital in Atlanta is about $10,000 for the same thing. That is a ridiculous differential. And when patients figure that out, who can choose to pay, to know what you're paying up front, or to be stuck with a bill with facility fees and hidden costs after the fact? I think most patients would choose the former.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course, right? I mean, let's face it, people aren't stupid, right? They understand.
No.
So how do you really encourage people? How do you get the word out that, hey, you've got alternatives?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
well, I think that it's now no longer the best kept secret. There are cases, every time I do a talk show, there's somebody who calls in and says that they've now switched to a direct primary care practice model where it's a membership fee, one flat fee per month, anywhere from $60 to $125 for a family. And once they pay that, they're covered for everything that goes on in the doctor's office, whether that be a lab, whether that be an EKG, whether that be the doctor visit, everything's covered. They're finding out that they can see their doctor when they want and not be gouged, not have to end up in an emergency room. I have other patients calling or people calling in saying they've chosen Liberty Health Share or Samaritan or any other of the insurance ministries. And again, they're able to see the doctor that they want. They're paying out of pocket in a Liberty Health Share model, $500 per year for an individual or $1,500 for a family maximum per year. That's a huge difference.
Oh, yeah.
And as a small business, isn't it? Small business, I've actually added Liberty Health Share and then added AFLAC to my policies that I offer for my employees. And we've bought policies that cover us for cancer, for hospitalization, for accident, paying $50 a month. That's nothing. Vision, dental. And we have a policy in place for $250,000 a year, $250,000 for any diagnosis of cancer, just a check written to anybody in our office if they unfortunately get that diagnosis. That's a huge peace of mind. You add that to the Liberty Health Share plan, you're actually getting paid to stay healthy at this point. And we're paying a fraction of what we would have paid had I chosen something like a regular insurance model. So this is how you play the game. You have to become a consumer, a healthcare consumer. That is the best way to take your power back, to pay a fraction of what you're paying now, and to put pressure on the system. I think actually, Kerry, the insurance companies, once people withdraw their consent from the system, will re-engage with the catastrophic plans. I think they're going to come back online. And I think people are going to be paying for only what they need, not what someone tells them they should have.
Hey, that's a great point. So the catastrophic plans, we have to review what that is. So basically, you have a high deductible policy, say $10,000, and then anything over that, so you're hospitalized, whatever, really bad injuries, disease, so anything over $10,000, insurance company is going to pay for, subject to whatever the plan is, and then you're looking at paying a drastically reduced price because the administrative costs on a catastrophic plan are very minimal because you're not bombarding them with claims 2, 3, 4, 5 or more a month. It's only when the big one happens, right? Do I have that right?
That's exactly right. And if you pair a policy like that with AFLAC, for example, where you're paying, $50 a month for the three plans that I purchased for myself, cancer, accident, hospital, then you're going to get paid or get your money back for any doctor visit, anything like colonoscopy or mammogram. They're actually going to give you money back on those types of office visits. Or you can buy a dental plan if you need to get a crown or root canal. You can get up to $1,600 back from AFLAC. So you can actually cover yourself in that gap between the catastrophic coverage and what you actually will use. Most people pay about $400 maximum a year going to the doctor. That's all they're paying, but they're paying $20,000 for a family, $12,000, $16,000 for an individual insurance plan. All that money you're putting out and not using has just gone out to the wind. This is a better way if you're healthy, if you actually want to pay for your services because you know what the cost is going to be. These are options and strategies that you can use, which really do work.
Yeah, and really can save you a fortune because looking at the new rates.
Absolutely.
For instance, a platinum plan in Palm Beach County, Florida, 3 years ago or before Obamacare sprang to life, it was $850 a month. And that was the most comprehensive plan around, pretty much a Cadillac plan for upper middle class. Afterwards, this year, it's at $2,400. So effectively, rates have tripled. And that's a non-Obamacare plan. It just shows what's happened. So the ability to pick and choose, like I don't need pregnancy coverage. I don't need, mammograms. And yet everybody, regardless their age, sex, whatever, is entitled to these things. So getting the government in, exactly the same things you were warning about prior to the implementation of Obamacare is exactly what's happened.
Absolutely. And you add in the pharmaceutical, the drug costs. Those haven't gone down. As a matter of fact, anything that's a staple for somebody with a catastrophic illness has tripled, even sometimes 10 times more what the cost was before Obamacare. So we're talking insulin, which used to be $50, lancets, the needles that you used to, give your blood. Yeah. Those have gone out just crazy expensive, over $200 for insulin. If you're an asthmatic, the inhalers used to be $40. They're now $250 for an inhaler. People have been priced out of things that they need for catastrophic illnesses. Isn't that what the Affordable Care Act was supposed to reverse? It didn't. And that's a major problem. They have a captive audience held hostage. They could set price structure that was totally ridiculous. Nobody was watching them. The EpiPen is only one example of what happened to people in the real world. And nobody took any kind of stand in the government in any way, stand against this gouging. And that's what's been going on. The only thing that works against it is competition. Competition to the hospital so that you can go to an independent doctor and pay a fraction for an office visit. Go to a freestanding radiology center, a surgery center. They only really will pay attention if there's competition and people choose something against them and then pressure them to drop their price. Right now, they're living large. They're making out like bandits. They're buying or have bought out a ton of independent doctor practices, surgery centers. They want to become too big to fail in the only game in town. And that's what we have to guard against.
Yeah, totally. Couldn't agree with you more here, Dr. George. But like we say, there's hope. And it's funny that the hope's actually coming from the failure of Congress to repeal this monstrosity. I mean, it's a little ironic, isn't it?
Yes, it is a little bit, but it's a good thing. It's a win for doctors and patients. There's no question in my mind. Now it's our job, yours, mine, anybody out on the front line who has the ear of any listener, to let them know that get out there and do your research. Go to my website, drelainageorge.com. Listen to you, Kerry. I mean, you're on the front line as well. We have, put in information that people can go do their research and pick the best thing that's for them. The government now no longer can force you to do something that you don't want to. Hopefully that'll be the mantra that pervades the rest of whatever the government's doing. But at least from the healthcare perspective, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Hey, well, we can use some good news in healthcare. We could use some good news all around, and we've been getting a lot of good news, surprisingly enough. Naysayers be damned. So how's this affecting you personally here in your practice, Dr. George? Because you really have been at the vanguard, the forefront of all this, of trying to get the government out of your healthcare and out of your medical business.
I would everything as a cafeteria. I do take insurance still, and I've limited what I take so that I'm able to be the freest with my patient instead of some entity telling me what's not covered and what's experimental. I'm able to now tell my patients, you can pick Liberty Health Share, you can pay out of pocket, we can still treat you the way that you want to. We can still have a direct doctor-patient relationship. And now I can give them options, which is always a good thing for me as well.
That is a great thing. Dr. George, it's always so great to have you on. So it's just tell us your site again.
My site is drelainageorge.com. If people want to find out more about what I talked about, like AFLAC, for example, they can text Paid to Be Healthy to 36260. That's a great informational site, and they can get information for their employees or for themselves. And they can always reach out to me through the website, drelainageorge.com.
Hey, and before we go, Dr. George, I want to thank you for something you told me about that worked out amazingly well. I think it was Any Lab Test Now. It's a franchise.
Yep.
I think Quest and a couple of the biggies are involved in it. However, I went to one of the major labs, and I was paying out of pocket, for Liberty Health Share, and they charged me $500 just to get a lipids panel, my glucose, liver function, A1C. I go to Any Lab Test Now, and there was one right by me, and there's a few in Palm Beach County, Florida, and they charged me $129. Now, the best part is, and I never realized this, and we never really talked about it, pretty much what you can do, what it is you pretty much, you can just go get a blood test. You don't need a doctor's order to get a blood test. I never quite grasped that before. And I had the doctor's order, and I said, I know that my vitamin D is fine. I take 5,000 units a day, and last time it was fine. I don't really need to pay extra for that. And I said, look, I don't really want to pay for vitamin D, but if you throw it in for a couple bucks, so they made me a discounted deal. I paid $129, which Liberty picked up a chunk of. And the best thing was, Dr. George, I get the report in my email box the next day, and I'm able to look at it. I know what the numbers mean to some extent. I'm not a doctor, of course. I get the report back, and then, they're supposed to have sent it to my doctor's offices. I have a couple doctors I see, which, of course, they never figured out how to merge into their electronic records. So I said, hey, I got the report right here. I email it right to the person's email box. They get it sucked into the system, and we're able to analyze it. Normally, most labs couldn't care less. They won't send you the report. You have to get it from your doctor. And this was such an eye-opener, Dr. George. And not to mention, it saved me hundreds of dollars. I've gotten 3 or 4 lab tests from them so far. It's like no difference. It's just like I can't encourage people enough to go to this place. And I really have to thank you for it, because besides the cost savings, which is significant, the cost savings is 60-70%. But besides that, it put me in control of my health records. It enabled me to figure out who I wanted to give them to and not worry if the doctor got it or didn't get it. I mean, this is an amazing thing. I loved it. And all thanks to you, doctor.
My pleasure. Let me give you one more pearl before we go.
Okay.
Blinkhealth.com. BLINK health.com. That website is a discount for any prescription drug, whether it's brand name or generic. You prepay, and you can get up to 70% off the cost of the medication, and that's across the country. So that's another little pearl for people who are on prescription meds and are paying crazy amounts of money. You can sometimes get it for pennies instead of what you're paying. Hey. So that's another thing. And, it's irregard to insurance because it's cash based.
Yes. Hey, well, I'll tell you another little secret. I mean, you're not supposed to go off buying your drugs from Canadian pharmacies, and the customs will confiscate if they figure it out. But honestly, they just don't bother normally. But I went to my doctor, and I just happened to be going to a conference in Vancouver and wanted a blood sugar medication that these drug companies here get $750 for. I was able to get it. I don't want to give the name. It's irrelevant. I was able to get it in Canada for $300. And I'm coming back over the border, and they said, did you get anything? I said, just my blood sugar medication. Oh, okay. Go ahead. I mean, Dr. George, we're just being so ripped off. So another drug they wanted $550 for, my favorite Canadian pharmacy in Vancouver, Mark's Marine. You can look it up. they sold it to me for $119, Dr. George. It was an 80% savings. And if you have access to these pharmacies, it almost would pay for a trip to Canada when you get down to it. It's remarkable how we're getting ripped off.
Well, we're paying for the drugs across the world. We are subsidizing all of these discount medications in Canada, in Mexico, et cetera. And that's the sad part. We need to actually know what we're paying. If we decide we're not going to do it, they have to drop these prices. Hopefully the government will start, this is the template, get rid of the mandate, and then start going out from there to the pharmaceuticals, to the cost of insurance, what they cover. I foresee, and I would love to have a lot more changes to our healthcare system, that if your insurance company approves something, for example, they have to pay it. They can't just deny it after the fact. These are all things that I believe that we should fight for, continuation of the fight to make the system better. This is just the beginning. But what you just said about Canadian drugs, about linkhealth.com, where you can get your drugs at Walmart or Walgreens or any of the pharmacies in our country and get that same price in a lot of cases that you would do going to Canada. These are things that we can actually do now. You don't have to wait for the government. You can take your power back now. You can buy Liberty Health Share. You can buy Aflac policies. You don't have to wait for anybody to do that. Add some comfort and some control to your choices, and I think you're going to find that it's a whole different world out there. You're not afraid of anything anymore because you know exactly what you're going to be paying, and you can stay healthy. That's the key, Kerry. You have to stay healthy. Don't get sick.
Yeah.
Start making changes now that you can avoid the system. That's another way to beat it. Don't go into it at all.
Hey, that's such a great point. And I'll tell you, I'm having blood pressure issues, and I realized, and unlike most people who've got blood pressure issues, I feel it in the terms of decreased energy, fatigue, and, it definitely affects my mood somewhat. Well, you know what? I started working out again and working out more vigorously without a trainer, anything, just myself. And I've been doing it for 4 months, Dr. George. My cholesterol, this is treated with Lipitor every other day, went down from 187 to 150. My blood pressure is still a little high. Yeah, last time it was checked, it was 140/90. Not terrible for a 60-year-old male my size. All my numbers came down, and I've been bike riding and hitting the gym, doing some cardio, and then doing weights, but really pushing my body, really pushing it more than I ever have. I've been working out for most of my life, but I never pushed myself this hard. And yeah, the difference is just dramatic in the way I feel and the numbers. When the numbers confirm it, then you're doing something right.
Well, from your lips to the rest of your listeners' ears, you're doing the right thing. And little changes, changing your diet. Let's say you can't work out, but you can start juicing. Juicing is a major way to get vitamins, to cut your calories. You can choose more of a vegetarian-based diet, get off the fats, choose grass-fed meats instead of the corn-fed, which is terrible, and drink more water. Little things like that really make a huge difference. Take a flight of steps instead of an elevator. They all add up.
Yeah, they all count. So, hey, Dr. George, again, thank you so much for all you do, all you've done. We're going to get together after the first of the year, talk about ways to save money. And it would be great if you could just quickly put together a white paper for every savings technique that pops into your head. I'd love to send it out to everybody out there, all of you listeners, all of my FSN community who are hearing this. I want to send you a white paper on discounted healthcare, how you make it work. So, Dr. George, again, thanks so much. Hey, be part of the show. Email us, kl@kerrylutz.com. The Twitter feed's @KerryLutz, and the Facebook page is Financial Survival Network. Dr. George, best wishes for the New Year's. Merry Christmas. Thanks so much for coming on, and thank you for all you do.
Thank you, Kerry. Have a blessed rest of the year and New Year.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.